So in today's topic, I want to talk about a few things that's, you know, really concerning um, about the previous generation, like the baby boomer generation and the boomer generation, right? Why I believe that they could have been the generation of the Antichrist is because the entire liberal movement uh, after the Vietnam War started with the baby boomer and the end of the boomer generation, where they felt like liberated and started creating this sex revolution for and first and third and second feminist movement. And so what happened was they created the liberal movements that we have today of a bunch of new age, new generation of people who are mentally ill because the baby boomers and the boomer generation destroyed the family and started creating the sex revolution in America. And during the hippie movements, they were testing LSD, acid, and all sorts of heavy psychotic drugs and consuming a bunch of cocaine and all sorts of stuff like that. And then to add on top of it all, they created, the feminist movement, the women's liberation movements and things like that. And the Playboy magazines and porn addiction and all these other things that the boomer generation rarely had in that time. At that time, it was difficult to get porn. Porn was something that you had to drive very far away, and everybody would see you going into a sex store buying a CD or a cassette tape of pornography. So not that many people had the guts to go out and purchase pornography. So on top of it all, the Rockefeller Foundation created the destruction of the family with by funding the women's liberation movement, and they destroyed the scientific and health research to do with natural healing medicines and natural foods and stuff like that by funding a bunch of control oppositional groups and the FDA to control the drug industry with Kissinger, the Rockefellers, and the Trilateral Commission, all these other, the Bilderberg Group. They all consolidating power over the FDA that way, and the CDC. This is why the CDC has a bunch of patents on medicines, and they sell billions of dollars a year on synthetic medication in order to heal the population, right? And they basically arrested all the other doctors who had natural amenities to heal the human bodies and its organs and stuff like that. So the baby boomer generation and the boomer generation could have been the generation of the Antichrist, because not only they created the liberal movements that we have today, created a bunch of mentally ill children and traumatized children and abused children, but they also sold the new generation out to Israel and in foreign countries to protect them, right? And as the boomer got older and older, and baby boomers, they started consolidating power over the military and becoming a cult alike. And so this is why you got a bunch of conservatives and boomers watching TV all day long on their boxes, on their television all day, basically listening to Fox News and being really ignorant. So the baby boomer generations and the boomer generation were the Antichrist generation, because I think right now, as they're draining America and giving out to a bunch of mobs and BlackRock and all these satanic cults. Their last attempt that they're gonna try to do pretty soon is going to be basically they're going to differentiate two categories of people, right? They're gonna say that there is state citizens and people, and then they're gonna try to take the Constitution away from migrants and all these other people and claim that they didn't have a birth certificate or a nationality to begin with because they were under the citizenship corporation of America. So here's what the boomers going to do. Just watch. All these Germans, just watch what they're gonna do. Because majority of Americans, like all these Germans and all these Europeans, are under the maritime law system. So watch what they're gonna do, because as soon as they become state citizens and stuff like that, they're gonna say that all the migrants are not Americans and they have no constitutional authority under the land, because they are going to become state citizens. And this is what we're seeing in Florida right now with DeSantis and all these other ignorant military cult alike, right at, you know, operating with the foreign intelligence agencies. Because Florida officials got caught multiple times going to Jerusalem and operating out of Israel. So watch what's going to happen. Before these boomers go back to hell where they came from, they're going to do the last stab on the American people and the last stab on the last population. Not only they divided the new sexes of races, not only they destroyed culture in America, not only they created this cult of military mind, not only they created the hippie and the drug use and porn addiction and all these other things, but before these boomers pass away, before these baby boomers pass away, they are gonna divide the living shit out of this country. Just watch. Look, they created Pelosi, they created Schumer, they created all these people that we have at the House and the Senate, you know, and not only that, but at the Treasury and the U.S. Federal Reserve System. And you got Bloomberg over there that owns all our birth certificates, right? And they trade our birth certificates through shares and things like that. Now, if you might be listening to me, you know, might not understand what I'm saying, but if you do a research into people's birth certificate and things like that, a bond is attached to your birth certificate, and then your rights is you as a person become an artificial entity attached to a bond. So that's why the government and insurance agencies can get their money back without a risk. So it's an alright system because it works, because it gives investors leverage if they lose their investments and things like that. But it's basically modern day slavery. But if you're new to this, you might be thinking that, like, what is all this mumbo jumbo? But just do a research into birth certificate and bonds and everything like that. If you go to the Treasury Direct website and you type in your social security number, you're gonna know exactly how much you're worth under the bond system and the Delaware birth certificate maritime law system that they have inside America. But before these boomers go away, before all these baby boomers pass away, they're going to stab our generation really deep. It's going to leave a really deep scar for the next 10 to 20 years, so they can watch all of us suffer some hell. So before they go back to hell where they came from, they're going to divide this nation. And they're going to say that only white Europeans are Americans and all these brown people are basically non-Americans because they have birth certificates and they're citizens of the Corporation of America. And they're not state citizen, and only the white Europeans and all these people that's been consolidating power over in Florida that I have been seeing, which is the royal family and their, you know, European like mobs, where they consolidate power over different franchises and they create community theaters in order to boost up business from different places by making it look artificially popular, as well as funding TV channels to get people to buy and consume this stuff so they can make a profit out of it. So what they're going to do is that they're going to consolidate power over all of this, and then they're going to basically say that, and they're going to start harassing, stalking, and doing all sorts of horrible things to people who isn't part of their cult, because they're the real Americans and they have the real flag of the United States of America, and only the military can operate under this new flag. So if you study, the post office owns the real Title IV flag of the United States of America. So what they're going to do is they're going to consolidate power over the post office, and then they're going to consolidate power over the postmaster, and then they're going to consolidate power over the courts, that they're already doing that in Florida, and then they're going to hand it over to Europe and then control America that way here. And then they're going to create a mass influx of immigrants out of Europe, out of war-torn zone in Europe, and they're going to say that those people are real Americans because they're state citizens. They're going to create the hush-hush fast citizenship under the state, and Europeans are instantly going to become Americans that way. But, you know, God is already under control of all these things, and Russia is already giving absolute holy power right now. And not only that, but China. So all their franchises that they have right now is going to basically be crushed down. All these socialist franchises. So before these satanic boomers go away, man, there's going to be a war that's going to happen inside the United States of America, because they created all this corporate socialism by turning a blind eye, doing a bunch of drugs, creating sex revolution, and allowing a bunch of spies to infiltrate America, like they have done with the Mossad agencies, international communities, like MI6 and QQC, so whatever, the intelligence agency out of London. They're allowed to operate inside the United States of America under the jurisdiction that they don't basically use any American badges, so they can bypass the Constitution against Americans. But now the boomer, before he goes to hell, he's going to find an artificial way in order to take people's Constitution away and then pull everybody into the state system, and then say that only those are people who are allowed to have the Constitution. That's all going to be military bodies. That's going to be undercover for the new grid system that's going to divide this nation into, it's going to split the whole nation. It's going to create one massive civil war that way. So right now I'm going back to Florida. I'm going basically back to Florida, and I went to Texas for a little while, stay at my little cabin to just figure out how things are. Last winter I stayed there. I couldn't survive that long. This winter I survived pretty good. This winter was good. And summer, I have to figure out how I'm gonna survive on summers, but hopefully my plans are to basically, I'm gonna figure out a way to basically put this property on hold in Texas, and I might do a trip internationally. I might do a trip to Brazil after I go to Florida right now. And I gotta figure out, because right now here in Texas I figured out that I'm basically being targeted. So I'm going back, because they use a different tactic here in Texas, completely different than what they were doing in Florida. Here in Texas was most likely military, as well as Freemasonries and Citizen Corp, those three. In Florida is more like a European entity out of the European Union who target you to get you out of a specific region. So I'm going back to Florida right now. I'm gonna spend Christmas and New Year's in Florida, and then after that I might do a trip to Brazil and see if I can get some kind of assistance, see if I can basically be allowed to live basically, be allowed to have a girlfriend and things like that, and hopefully serve under the right flag, instead of all this control confusion where everybody flies different flags under different jurisdiction. That's what's gonna happen, you know. That's what's gonna happen internationally. The people who are being targeted here are going to automatically join forces with some other entities outside, and Europe and America is just going to fall under its own footprint. So that's why it's really important to pay attention to these boomers, because they will destroy this nation. They will go back to hell one way or the other, and they're going to drag as many people with them. And I'm not talking about like your average everyday boomer. I'm talking about like a fraction of the population of these wise men that give themselves powers and stuff like that. So it's just absolutely disturbing, man. Our generation, we're not having any children, we're not having any family, we're not having anything. We're just a control civilization right now. Because in Florida, everybody's tight with their little social circle, and only if you pay attention in town, you're only going to see whites and Europeans having children and walking around in public. The sheriff department became the mob. It's like Florida is one giant mess of mobsters and European entities controlling race and population control that way, and street theaters and artificial, you know, consumers to boost up business for their controlled franchises. It's really nasty, man. Really nasty. Hopefully in Brazil, when I go to Brazil, hopefully next year, this year, I can do an analytical research to figure out how bad things are here in America. Let's see what happens, man. Let's see what happens.